It was supposed to be a simple act of kindness. Brianna, a warm-hearted Black woman known for her compassion, had just moved into a quiet suburban neighborhood. Her mission was to build bridges and spread goodwill, no matter what. One morning, she decided to bake cookies as a way of introducing herself to her neighbors. She'd heard rumors about one house in particular, a neighbor with a history of standoffish behavior and a reputation for holding on to outdated, hurtful biases. But Brianna wasn't deterred. If anything, she saw this as an opportunity to change hearts. With a plate of fresh cookies in hand, she knocked on the door. The woman who answered seemed startled, her expression betraying more suspicion than gratitude. Brianna's warm smile met a cold, guarded stare. Still, she handed over the cookies with a heartfelt welcome and left, hoping she had made even a small difference. 15 minutes later, Brianna was tidying up her kitchen when there was an unexpected knock at her door. Looking out, she was startled to see two police officers standing on her porch. Her mind raced. What could this be about? Why were the police here? As she opened the door, questions swirled in her mind. Little did she know, the next few moments would completely shift the narrative of her day, and perhaps her life. Stay tuned to find out what happened next in this gripping story of prejudice, courage, and unexpected outcomes. Brianna hesitated for a moment before opening the door, her heart pounding. The officers stood there with serious expressions, their presence heavy and intimidating. She greeted them politely, trying to mask the nervousness creeping into her voice. One officer cleared his throat and asked, "Are you Brianna Johnson?" She nodded, unsure of where this was going. "We received a call about a disturbance at this address," he continued, his tone professional but firm. Brianna's brow furrowed in confusion. A disturbance? She had been alone, minding her own business, since she got back from delivering the cookies. Her thoughts flashed to the neighbor she had just visited. Could it have something to do with her? Trying to keep calm, she explained that she hadn't done anything unusual, recounting her brief interaction with the woman. The officers exchanged a look, and one of them took a step closer. "We're just following up," he said. The caller mentioned feeling uncomfortable with a suspicious visitor. The words hung in the air, cutting deep. Suspicious visitor? Brianna's chest tightened as the weight of the situation began to sink in. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Had her gesture of kindness really been twisted into something so negative? The officers seemed to sense her confusion and softened their approach slightly, asking more questions about her visit to the neighbor's house. Brianna answered honestly, her voice steady but her mind racing. What was really going on here? And why would someone see her as a threat simply for trying to spread kindness? The situation was becoming more complicated by the minute. As the officers continued to question her, Brianna noticed their expressions softening slightly, but the underlying tension remained. It was clear they didn't think she was a criminal, yet here they were, standing in her doorway because of a complaint. She kept her composure, but inside, she was grappling with a mix of frustration and sadness. How could an act of kindness bring her to this moment? Meanwhile, across the street, curtains shifted ever so slightly in the neighbor's window. Brianna's mind went back to their brief interaction. She had felt the hesitation, the unease in the woman's body language, but never imagined it could escalate to this. Had her neighbor really called the police? And if so, why? What kind of fear or prejudice could drive someone to act this way over something as innocent as a plate of cookies? The officers wrapped up their questions, assuring Brianna that they just wanted to clear things up. As they turned to leave, one paused and glanced back at her. "Sometimes people misunderstand situations," he said, his voice low, as if trying to offer some kind of reassurance. Brianna nodded, but the comment did little to ease the knot in her chest. Inside, she paced the floor, replaying the encounter in her mind. Was this a misunderstanding, or was it something deeper? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of her phone buzzing. It was a text from a neighbor she had yet to meet, someone who had apparently witnessed the whole thing from their window. What they had to say added another layer of complexity to an already confusing day. Brianna stared at the text on her phone, her pulse quickening. The message was from someone named Lisa, who lived 2 houses down. Saw the cops at your door. Just so you know, the woman across the street has a history of calling them on people. She's done it to others too. You okay? The words sent a chill through Brianna. This wasn't just about her cookies or a single misunderstanding. It seemed she'd stumbled into something bigger, something rooted in deep-seated mistrust and fear. Her first instinct was to brush it off and move on, but the more she thought about it, the more the situation gnawed at her. What if she hadn't been as composed when the police showed up? What if they had believed the worst without asking questions? The idea made her stomach turn. She decided to call Lisa, hoping to get more clarity. Lisa picked up on the second ring, her voice warm but tinged with concern. "It's nothing personal," Lisa said. "She's just set in her ways. A lot of us try to avoid her, but you know how it is. New faces make her uncomfortable." Uncomfortable. That word echoed in Brianna's mind, feeling heavier each time. She thanked Lisa for her kindness and hung up, but she couldn't shake the sense that something needed to change. As she stood in her kitchen, the weight of the day pressing down on her, a car slowed in front of her house. Her heart skipped a beat. It wasn't the police this time, but the same neighbor she had visited earlier. She stepped out onto the porch, bracing herself for what felt like a turning point in a story she never expected to be living. The car stopped in front of her house, and Brianna's neighbor stepped out. She carried the plate of cookies Brianna had given her earlier, now wrapped tightly in plastic wrap. Brianna couldn't tell from the woman's expression if she was there to return them or to say something else entirely. Steeling herself, Brianna stepped off the porch to meet her halfway. "Hello," Brianna said, her voice calm but guarded. The woman hesitated, her eyes darting to the ground before she finally spoke. I think there's been a misunderstanding." Her tone was awkward, almost defensive, as if she couldn't quite find the right words. Brianna's curiosity grew, but she stayed silent, letting the woman explain. "When you came over earlier, I wasn't sure what to think," she continued. "We don't get a lot of visitors here, and, well, I panicked. I made the call before I thought things through." Brianna's stomach dropped. She knew it. The neighbor had been the one to call the police. But before she could respond, the woman added something unexpected. "After they left, I got a call too, from someone else in the neighborhood. They told me about you, how you're new here and trying to meet people. They said you're not just kind, you're brave." Brianna was taken aback. She didn't expect to hear anything resembling an apology, let alone a compliment. But before the moment could settle, the neighbor's phone buzzed in her hand. She glanced at it, her face suddenly shifting to a mixture of alarm and confusion. "I think you should see this," she said, holding the screen toward Brianna. On it was a message that hinted someone else in the neighborhood might be stirring trouble, dragging others into the conflict. Brianna stared at the neighbor's phone, her heart sinking as she read the message. It was from someone else in the neighborhood group chat, urging people to keep an eye on the new resident, and spreading baseless rumors about her intentions. The words were dripping with unwarranted suspicion, and Brianna could feel a mix of anger and hurt rising in her chest. The woman in front of her shifted uncomfortably, clearly unsure of how to handle the situation. "I didn't know it would go this far," the neighbor said, her voice quieter now, almost apologetic. I was scared, but this is wrong. Before Brianna could respond, a car pulled into the driveway of the house next door. A man stepped out, waving as he approached. "Hey, are you Brianna?" he asked, his tone casual but warm. She nodded cautiously. "I'm David." I saw the group chat blowing up and thought I should step in. I've lived here for years, and I know how quickly things can spiral. David went on to explain that he'd been monitoring the chat after hearing about the police visit. He'd seen some neighbors trying to escalate things, but he also noticed others defending Brianna and calling out the unnecessary drama. "Not everyone here is like that," he said with a reassuring smile. Brianna felt a glimmer of hope, but just as she was about to thank him, a second notification popped up on the neighbor's phone. It was a new message in the chat, this time from someone claiming to have footage from their doorbell camera showing what really happened during Brianna's visit. The neighbor froze, her face pale. "I didn't mean for this to get so out of hand," she whispered. As the video loaded, Brianna braced herself for what felt like the final test of her character. The clip, however, wasn't what anyone expected. Instead of incriminating her, it captured Brianna's genuine smile, her warm words, and the simple, heartfelt gesture of extending kindness. The group chat exploded with reactions. Some apologized for their assumptions, while others doubled down on their negativity. But for the first time, Brianna felt a shift. David stepped closer and said firmly, "You're not alone in this." The neighbor, clearly moved, finally handed Brianna the plate of cookies. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice trembling. "Thank you for trying to be kind when I didn't deserve it." Brianna smiled softly. "It's never too late to change," she said as she walked back toward her house, feeling a mix of relief and determination. The situation had been far from easy, but it had sparked something bigger, a conversation that this neighborhood desperately needed. In the days that followed, the tension in the neighborhood began to shift. Brianna noticed more smiles and waves from neighbors who had previously avoided eye contact. Some even stopped by her house to introduce themselves and apologize for the misunderstanding. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a step forward, a reminder that change often starts with uncomfortable conversations and small acts of courage. The group chat, once a source of negativity, became surprisingly active with discussions about inclusion and kindness. David took the lead in organizing a community meeting, inviting everyone to come together and share their perspectives. Brianna hesitated at first, but decided to attend. She shared her experience, speaking openly about how it felt to be misjudged based on appearances, and how small gestures of connection, like a plate of cookies, could mean so much. To her surprise, the neighbor who had initially called the police also spoke. With a shaky voice, she admitted her fears and biases, explaining that her actions were more about her own insecurities than anything Brianna had done. It wasn't easy for her to say, but it was a start. Brianna left that meeting feeling hopeful. She knew there was still work to be done, but she also knew that one act of kindness had sparked something powerful. As she settled into her home that evening, she couldn't help but smile. The world wasn't perfect, but it was full of potential for growth, and that was enough. And for Brianna, the lesson was clear. Kindness, even when it's met with resistance, has the power to transform. It might not happen instantly, but it plants a seed that can grow in ways you never expect.